Hello and welcome to Indian Standard Time, a show that speaks to thinkers from all around the world, to people who have made their mark on the sands of time. Today I'm in conversation with Stig Toft Madsen, a social anthropologist from the Nordic Institute of Asian Studies in Copenhagen, Denmark, and somebody who knows India quite well. He's been coming here since the 1970s and continues to maintain his love affair with this country. Stig, welcome to India, welcome to Rajya Sabha TV.
Thank you very much.
Now tell me, you've been a student, you were a backpacker in the 70s. Were you a hippie of sorts, and how did you become a social anthropologist?
I didn't follow the usual hippie route.
Okay.
And once I returned to Denmark and joined university, I could see that in order to learn more about India, it would be better to come out here. At that time I had a Hindi teacher.
तो आप हिंदी बोलते हैं? थोड़ी सी हिंदी बोलते हैं?
मैं थोड़ी सी हिंदी बोलता हूँ और वो पक्का उस्ताद आदमी था. उन्होंने बोल दिया आप दिल्ली मत जाओ. You have to go to a smaller university where everybody speaks Hindi. Then I landed up in Meerut University, which was a new university at that time. And I spent
कब की बात है? When did you come to Meerut and what did you do there?
I did my MA as a regular.
कब की बात है? When did you come to Meerut?
74. Before the emergency, and I stayed there until 76, and I finished my MA in sociology under an Indian professor at that new campus.
So that's how your interest in the Jat heartland of Western Uttar Pradesh, in the politics of Western UP, shall we say, that is when it all began.
Started in the hostel. All the students, or a good number of them, they were Jat boys who had come in from the countryside, studying various subjects. There were others, Kashmiris, Keralites, who related to me, they suggested, we are also the foreigners here, let's hang out together. But the bulk of the university students were Jats or other rural castes.
And when you came to India, Charan Singh, the former Prime Minister of India, was still alive. And you met his son, Ajit Singh, and got to know him quite well.
I met Chaudhry Ajit Singh much later. Chaudhry Charan Singh is sort of a mythical figure to me, but everybody I have met in Western UP have tend to have met him, have some story to tell about him. So among these well-known Indian leaders, because I lived in Western UP, he happened to be the one I.
So what is your favorite story about Chaudhry Sahab?
This favorite story, one of them was that according to his son, he heard from one of his colleagues that when Chaudhry Charan Singh was appointed as Chief Minister in Uttar Pradesh, when you boarded the bus, the conductor would start issuing a ticket. Otherwise, you would just pay the conductor would keep the money in the pocket and would not issue a ticket. But due to the fear, the staunch character of Chaudhry Charan Singh, once he was in power in Lucknow, he would issue the ticket to you.
You know, he was obviously one of India's greatest leaders and a very interesting character. I remember 1954 when he wrote a letter to Jawaharlal Nehru and says that caste is actually, although it is a defining sort of aspect of Indian life or Indian society, shall we say, if gazetted people want to, or if people apply for gazetted positions and want to become officers in the Indian administrative service, they must marry out of caste. Is that correct?
I have heard that, and I think I have seen it in Illustrated Weekly a long time ago. I think it's a story he himself used to tell. The person really to ask that question is the American political scientist Paul Brass, because he also has a real long institutional memory. But it could well be in his spirit. And but the thing is, people's habits change late. In Barod in Western Uttar Pradesh, there is a well-known college. It's the Janta Vedic college, but everybody knows it as the Jat College.
In where is this?
In Bagpat Barod area.
Okay. So what about it?
People remember it and talk about it as the Jat College, but officially it has a name which doesn't indicate caste. Caste sticks.
But caste is such a defining characteristic of Indian society. So what do you make of it? You know, when you have people like Ajit Singh, a defining leader again from this part of the country. What is your view on how this impacts on life in modern day India, in 21st century India?
declining. The role of caste, I would say, is declining. But the politics works in such a way also that for a leader to be elected, you need votes from a number of different castes. There are the Jats are not in a majority. So I would say that the importance of caste is probably becoming less and less. If you take the current elections, there are so many considerations in people's minds as to what they should vote, pulling them in this direction and that direction, that I, for one, wouldn't venture a guess as to how they actually vote. You can't garner the caste vote automatically any longer.
And Ajit Singh's son, Jayant Chaudhary, who is fighting from Mathura, which is again the heart of the family fief, if you like. What do you think of him? What do you make of him?
I don't know the young leaders so well, but I'm interested in the very phenomena of political dynasties which are all over India.
Yes.
And here it's not only the family which persist or have been in power in politics for almost 100 years. They are in the same constituency. And I wonder whether the relation between voters and the political dynasty, because it's an iterative game where again and again the leader is asked to provide goods for the local electorate, whether in a way a kind of rational choice is being made by the voters, because they have a chance to know what they are going to get because the relation is so long-standing.
So Charan Singh first fights from Baghpat in 1937. Then his son Ajit Singh, much later, 60 or 70 years later, comes into politics or enters politics. And now Ajit Singh's son is not fighting from Baghpat but from Mathura, of course. But it's interesting that over the 70 or 80 or 100 year, well, 70 or 80 years that India has changed, I'm sure, in many ways. But do you feel that the institution of political dynasty, do you think that's also evolving?
Well, according to some writers like Patrick French, they are actually getting strengthened, the political
What do you
dynasties.
think? What does Stig Toft Madsen think?
I have a liking within Indian studies for people who stress merit. I am not from a famous noble family myself. People like me like to think that the world is just and you can make your mark in life according to merit. Dynasties are a spoke in the wheel for people, for other people, because it defines who will get the positions eventually.
But our political dynasty is different.
Yeah, they are different from dynasties.
How are they different?
Well, they are different because the voter has to respond. It's not a hereditary position. The voter has to respond. And what intrigues me is how come? What is it that the political leader is able to give to the voter so that again and again, generation after generation, the voter puts their cross? Because when you move up, as I did recently, to Barod via the Ghaziabad road, it's not as if that long-standing relation has meant that there are 4 lanes motorable roads all the way to the constituency. They are the worst you can get in the entire UP.
So are you saying that the voter has changed, or are the people still responding to the Ajit Singh family in the same way like they did in the past?
In the meetings, I think the way they respond is very ingrained. They know almost every step, when to shout and when to say this and that. But they want something, and what they are getting in this particular election...
What are they getting? That's the question. What are they getting?
This particular election, what they may be feeling they have got, the Jats, is status as other backward castes just before the elections were declared. Though they are in some ways not that backward, they also do want government positions which can safeguard your life.
And one quick question before we take a break, Professor Madsen. In the Muzaffarnagar Baghpat belt, which is really the fiefdom of the Charan Singh, Ajit Singh, Jayant Chaudhary family, after the riots in Muzaffarnagar, do you think things have changed?
There are some who say that the BJP will garner some votes because they defended the honor of the Jats or the Jat girls. I purposely didn't go to Muzaffarnagar area. It's a very sad story because people in that area pride themselves of not being communal. And now, almost as the only place in India for the last many years, they have suffered a communal riot.
And it's much more polarized than you've ever seen it before.
Well, in Meerut city, I have seen it polarized and I have experienced that, but not in the countryside.
But do you think it's polarized today in the countryside much more?
Well, this may be reflected in the voting.
Okay. Professor Madsen, I'm going to take a very quick break, but so hold on to your thought. Please don't go away. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. You're watching Indian Standard Time, and I'm in conversation with Stig Toft Madsen, a social anthropologist from the Nordic Institute of Asian Studies in Denmark. Stig, I'd like to expand the scope of this interview a little bit and take you to Karnataka, which is your other sort of region of expertise, if you like. You've written and talked about the farmers of Karnataka, of the Karnataka Rajya Rayot Sangh, and the challenges of globalization. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there have been a number of farmers' movements in India since the 80s, 70s. Some have been very positive towards the idea of globalization, liberalization, opening up, most famous being Sharad Joshi from Maharashtra. Up in UP, the BKU has been...
Which is the Bharatiya Kisan Union of Mahindra Tikait.
Which is in the headquartered in the Muzaffarnagar district.
Okay.
And down in Karnataka, you have movements which have been largely against, saying that they were against globalization. So I did spend some time in 98, 99, 2000 with the KRRS in Karnataka and also going with them to Europe when they protested globalization by going on an intercontinental caravan to my part of the world.
Okay, and that was interesting, wasn't it, that you had these 30 or 40 farmers from Karnataka transplanted in Geneva, in this sort of very Western European city. But when you say that they were only saying or they were talking against globalization, are you saying that they're actually willing to absorb the lessons of globalization much more than they actually admit to?
I think they have some problem in finding out who they really are and what they are really for and against.
Okay.
This is also a thing which applies in India itself. Farmers nowadays want to give the impression that they are in favor of sustainable agriculture. But if you look at the farmers, and there were a few hundred of them from India, they are typical products of the Green Revolution, and they are have been happy to use fertilizers and pesticides and water for irrigation to secure their crops and get a good income.
All right.
Now the issue when they went to Europe was what are they going to think about international trade and what about modern technology? And one major issue for them was the genetically modified cotton, the BT cotton, which was gaining currency in India. And if you look at that over time, you can see that even though they protested genetically modified cotton and the very idea of changing crops by changing their genes, they have also become, like most Indian farmers, avid users of BT cotton.
Okay, so what is this contradiction about then? On the one hand, you have, a lot of this sloganeering about globalization or about genetically engineered crops like Monsanto and Cargill and other such companies. But on the other hand, you have farmers, and especially small and medium farmers, that actually want to use these crops because of the high yields that they have.
Yes, what is the problem for them? The idea about opposing genetically modified cotton is a very strong platform on which to mobilize. People from India, intellectuals, farmers, leaders, ordinary peasants, can easily make up narratives or stories, true or less true, about how they have suffered because of these new technologies. And these stories, they sort of echo around the world, and they have got a lot of support also in Europe. In Europe, we have a very wavering attitude towards genetically modified crops also. So by purveying the authentic experience, or so-called authentic experience, of what happened with the introduction of genetically modified crops in India to Europe, the organization can grow, it can make its mark internationally, but then it also started fighting among various parts of the movement, because there were several leaders who brought this story to the global scene.
Yes, but are you saying then that there are a lot of opinions about these genetically engineered crops? Are you saying then that there is not only one point of view, and that actually some of these crops are very beneficial and very useful?
They have been a great success in India, despite the enormous opposition and despite the hesitation and doubt on the part of the government. When you actually look at the behavior of farmers, it started with Gujarat, when they somehow managed to get hold of the technology of these seeds. And since then it has spread to India, so now the cotton, which is now mainly BT cotton, is...
Where is it coming from? Where are these seeds coming from?
Oh, this was a technology developed by an American company called Monsanto. But these are germs which are in the earth, and this germ is toxic towards the pests that affect cotton, including Indian cotton. So the genetics, the gene from those bacteria are inserted into the cotton itself, so it becomes toxic.
I see.
And this could never be done before technologically, but it's a new technology which now has in a way been spread, and which is spread out of control. There are so many varieties now of BT cotton that nobody has check on it.
So would you say that this technology is foreign technology within quotes, or is it now Indian technology? Have we Indianized it?
When it was spread, and this was done clandestinely in a sort of anarcho-capitalist way, farmers and others referred to it as Deshi cotton.
Desi cotton.
Yeah, but it's Desi BT cotton, huh? So the what works in that new technology comes from, in this case, it has been developed in the USA. It could be developed elsewhere, but then incorporated, and once the control of the seed is in Indian hands, people may refer to it as Deshi.
So one of the fears perhaps about these genetically modified crops, perhaps, and I'm asking you this question, is that do you think that Indians are worried about this East India Company syndrome, which is that foreigners will come to India and they will take over our natural resources, and that we will lose control over these resources? Do you think that, you know, there is a subconscious fear about the new?
Well, that may be an ingrained feeling, but there is also a need on the part of the farmers to get the most efficient seeds. And if you look at the KRS today, I haven't visited them, but I can read it in the newspaper. Now they are saying, Monsanto, please, we don't want any Indian brand of yours or any other Indian brand. We want your brand. And if you don't deliver it, and if it doesn't work, you are responsible. So sort of, if you can't beat them, join them.
Professor, hold on to your thought, and I'm going to take a very quick break. Don't go away. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. You're watching Indian Standard Time, and I'm in conversation with Stig Toft Madsen, a social anthropologist from the Nordic Institute of Asian Studies in Denmark, Copenhagen. Dr. Madsen, you've also written quite a bit about the commercialization of food, or of especially of South Indian or of Karnataka cuisine, about the Udupi restaurants, and you talk about how caste is actually an integral part of food habits in India. Tell us a little bit about that.
Anthropologists would generally say that one way in which the caste system defines itself is through handling of food, cooking of food, sharing of food. And this goes very much for
This is about pollution, is it? About separation and pollution?
and people eating separately. One meal being cooked for Brahmins separately from others. The Brahmins may have their special dining hall. There may be feeding lines defined by caste, if you go back in history. My story about the Udupi hotels is that they were secularized. The old models, which were steeped in religion, around First World War were secularized by Brahmins, probably poor Brahmins, not very well educated Brahmins, from the coast of Karnataka, moving to the big cities like Bangalore or Chennai, Madras, using the skills they had in cooking and serving large number of people very rapidly, also in a very clean and hygienic manner, tasty food, using those skills to create restaurants and also hotels in the big cities for the men and later.
So what does that do to caste? Does it dilute the caste of this Brahmin, of the community?
Yes, because hotels, to a large extent, and also after they they were attacked by some of the rationalist anti-Brahmin movements in Tamil Nadu, the hotels are forced, more or less, to serve everybody who can pay their bill.
Right.
Irrespectively of caste, irrespectively of religion and nationality. So everybody, no matter who they are, get the experience of tasting this food, which has its roots in the temples, in the outdoor rituals also of the coastal area.
So a revolution is taking place really in the act of serving food or in the act of starting a restaurant. A revolution has taken place.
Yeah, I would say that the civil sphere in South India, which was probably more constricted than the civil sphere up here north. After all, up here in Delhi, where the Mughals and the other big empires used to be, you have had a flourishing court culture and an open society and a mobile society in ways which you perhaps didn't have down south.
Okay.
But these restaurants opened up civil society, made the city life, modern city life possible.
Okay, now let me take you to the east of India, to West Bengal, to the dropping of arms by a Danish man called Kim Davy, but who I believe has a Danish name called Niels Hawk. And I know you've been following the story. The Purulia arms drop in 2001 has never been resolved. We know that this Danish guy dropped these arms in support of the Anand Margis against the then communist government of the CPM government in West Bengal. But why is it that the Danish government is refusing to give him up to the Indian authorities?
The Danish government and the Indian government actually made a diplomatic agreement. This took place after 2001, after the 9/11 attack in the USA. Denmark changed its law.
Okay.
Previously to that, Denmark would not hand over any of its citizens outside a very limited number of countries.
All right.
After 2001, it became possible, and the Danish government and the Indian government at very high level actually made an agreement of how this particular Danish person should be forced to stand trial in India, and how he would then serve his sentence in Denmark. All the conditions were spelled out. So the Danish government and the Indian government agreed upon that. Who didn't agree? That was the Danish legal system, because the person, Kim Davy or Niels Hawk, challenged this agreement, this diplomatic agreement, in Danish lower court. He won. The government then appealed to the High Court. Again, there was a clear unanimous verdict by a 5-member bench that he could not be extradited. He should not be extradited. The extradition agreement was illegal. Then the Danish legal system did not pursue the matter any further. There could have been theoretically appeal to
So in a sense, Kim Davy is almost like a free man.
Not almost, he is a totally free man.
He is a totally free man, and he has not been punished for this act of dropping arms in India.
Neither in Denmark, because for a reason which I don't understand, he could not face trial in Denmark. Probably because
so these are double standards, would you say, Professor?
Well, there was no doubt in the Danish legal system that he could not be tried for this in Denmark.
Okay.
The only way he should be tried in India.
But the fact that he dropped arms in India, in Purulia district, but the fact that he did that, and he's in a mercenary, an arms mercenary, so he has not been punished for this act. So would you say that countries like Denmark, which revel in human rights, actually do not really care about the human rights of people in West Bengal or in India?
Well, I would say the case has proceeded according to the Danish legal system, and the verdict has been quite clear. So, I mean, justice has to be done, but justice also has to be seen to be done, huh? That's the old saying.
Right.
And everybody can see that in the end, justice has not been done, because even the person, Kim Davey, the person in question, admits that he did drop these weapons.
Professor Madsen, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. From Jat politics to Kim Davey, this has been a very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for talking to Rajya Sabha TV.
Thank you.
I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. Next week we'll be back with another global leader, a thinker. Till then, goodbye and good luck.